After completing 1 year of college in Puerto Rico, I decided to come to New York to fulfill my dream, to be a flight attendant. Spanish is my only language, and back then it was. I was born and grew up in Puerto Rico, and I grew up a very shy person, but at one point I just wanted to travel the world. When I came to New York, I got some interviews. However, I was plainly rejected. I couldn't communicate during the interview because I didn't know English. Heartbroken and disappointed, I decided to go back to college to learn English so I could pursue my dream. However, learning English was much harder than I imagined and anticipated. When I enrolled in college, I had to work during the day to support myself and go to school at night, college. Going to the classes in a language that it was not my own, it was hard and difficult. I remembered attending college and I would not understand. I couldn't understand the professor. I couldn't understand the material, the test. I could not understand anything. It's like I was lost. I failed many courses. I failed many classes again and again and again. But I kept on trying. I kept on trying to learn English because I wanted it, that dream job. I wanted to become a flight attendant. Learning the English language as an adult is very difficult. Learning English or any language in college is even more difficult. Nevertheless, I was committed to learn English so I could travel the world. In order for me to help improve my English, I will watch TV in English, I will watch cartoons, I will watch children's programs like The Electric Company, Sesame Street, because they target to children. I will read magazines, I will read newspapers, underline letters, I will do anything that I could possibly could in order to understand the language. But the more I practice, the less I felt that I was making any progress. Progress was happening very slow. Nevertheless, even though when I came through all those thoughts, I wanted it to give up. I thought that I wasn't good enough to learn the language. I thought that I was wasting my time. I thought about not returning to college because it was not for me. I kept on going and I kept on practicing and I kept on doing it and I kept on doing it. Many times I felt useless. I felt hopeless. I felt fear of not being able to learn the language and go forward. But I kept on going. I didn't have the nerve or the guts to stop. So I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. At one point, I felt so many courses and so many classes that I was put on academic probation. I was almost kicked out of college. I was frustrated and disappointed and embarrassed. I thought my life was over. I wanted it to give up, and I had that noise and that little voice on my ear and in my head that said, you better give up. Do something else. You're not good for this. But I didn't. I continue and continue and continue until all of a sudden, things started to happen. And I was able to pass my courses. I was able to graduate from college. And not only did I receive a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, I also graduated from a master's degree. Then I started to believe in myself. But even at this point, I was still feeling disappointed, and I was still feeling the fear that I was not good enough to do anything, and not good enough to learn the language or to speak it. There were, for a long time, I didn't speak the language because I was afraid that people were going to laugh at me or were going to criticize me. And in fact, when I started speaking the language, people did criticize me and people did laugh at me. And that made me feel even more withdrawn and more embarrassed to practice. But I kept on going. I kept on practicing because I said to myself, if I keep on practicing, something will happen. Even though in my mind there are many thoughts of giving up. After completing my bachelor's and my master's degree and still struggling with the language, I decided to go to law school, and I put becoming a flight attendant on the back burner. I wanted it to do more. I wanted it to challenge myself because at that point I felt that I was a little bit more confident to do better. Law school was another nightmare. It was difficult. It was hard because it was like learning another language. Nevertheless, I keep it up. I study as hard as I could. But I still have these feelings that I was in the wrong place. I shouldn't be an attorney. I shouldn't be there. This is not for me. And then speaking with a heavy accent did even worse for me. Law school, finally, graduation came. And then I was returning to New York to face taking the bar exam in order for me to be a licensed attorney and be able to practice law. The bar was also hard. Mindful, New York bar is one of the hardest in the country besides California. I already knew that New York bar was very difficult because I already heard comments of other people as to how difficult the exam was. And I knew that in my mind, I knew that I was going to fail that test. Nevertheless, I studied and I continued to practice until the test came. While studying for the bar, I started feeling anxiety as the closer the day of the test came. 2 days before the test, I could not sleep or eat because I was so nervous. I couldn't function. Nevertheless, I was ready, the way I thought, to take the test. The day of the test, as soon as I grabbed the test, my mind went blank. I could not remember anything, all the studying that I have done to prepare for the test, I forgot. Now, in learning a language, this is a system that I developed. In answering the questions to the test, I had to read the questions in English, translate it into my mind in Spanish, and then translate it back into English. That was the process that I needed in order for me to answer the question. But this system is time consuming. It took time. But it happened again and again and again. The day of the test, the results came, and I failed. And I took the test again. Disappointed and embarrassed and all going through all these negative feelings, I prepared again to take the test. And I failed again. And I take the test again. And I failed because I have to go through the full process. And being nervous and being blocking all the material, it didn't help. But I didn't give up. Because quitting is permanent. Failing is temporarily. And I thought that failing I could deal with, but I wasn't ready to give up. Finally, I passed the test and I became an attorney in New York State.